Matilu, kwani?
Matilu, can you pray?
Kila mtu afunge macho.
Matilu anaonekana anaogopa maombi. Licha kwamba niliacha akiwa anakuwa ni mlokole, sijui ibilisi kapitia wapi.
Matilu, can you pray?
Aya, volunteer basi.
Chest.
Yana Matilu hata ni kama ame left. Yuko? Oh, Muyeku Matilu.
Mwalimu, I can pray.
Okay, pray, then we begin.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for this session, Lord. We pray that everything we learn during this lesson, we are going to understand it, Lord. And in Jesus' name we pray and believe. Amen.
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 All right.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you for joining and being ready for the lesson. I was a few minutes late, around 5 minutes or so. I was also attending to another class for Form 2, especially Kiswahili. That was what I was doing. And I'm happy that I have an opportunity to join you for our CRE lesson. You did request that I do send the notes. I'm hoping that the notes have already reached you. That's my hope. Did you receive the notes?
Yes. Yes.
All right, fine. So I think now we'll be moving at the same pace. So I want now to move straight ahead and start our lesson. I want to start it right away.
Yes.
In the interest of time, so that we may be able to journey together. Hoping that you are doing well at home. You are really enjoying your holiday. How many weeks are remaining?
3. 3.
3. Okay.
Yes.
1 minute.
Manzia 21 plus 9 ni ngapi? Short. Yes.
Mwalimu najua. Wasirada.
Sorry for that. I was picking a very important call from the ocean of chemistry himself. So, do you know is the ocean of chemistry?
Yes.
Aluka. Yes, so I was you have to follow through and know is the ocean of chemistry. So I was following the lesson. I was just taking a bit of time from the ocean of chemistry. Yeah, so that's the reason that maybe I have taken a bit of time. But now I want now to be in a position to share the screen. I was saying that I hope that you have enjoyed your holiday. People are telling me that a few weeks are remaining, and you are saying 3 weeks. Oh my goodness, is it 3? Like serious?
No. 5.
You know, you want to make me feel as if I've not really relaxed. You know, I have to relax the last 2 weeks somewhere there. When are you breaking, by the way, or we are continue all the way up to the end?
Yes.
Huh?
Oh,
Martin, what is the issue?
Tunahitaji time ya kurelax bwana. Utupe
Una
wiki
relax.
moja,
Huh?
utupe wiki moja hapo mwisho.
si kuna weekend
Okay.
Matili.
I'm told people are having the weekends, and so the weekends should be
Kwanza wewe mwale unavaa uniform kwa class unataka kuniambia.
the weekend is almost
Tena ni
good.
holiday na naamka saa moja.
So don't worry, everything shall be well. But you don't need also to relax a lot. Why do you want to relax? Already you have been relaxing at home. I know, your bit of relaxing is just having some good food, and I'm sure that the budget at home has really risen, in the
Yes.
because most of us are using that opportunity. So somebody is I want that person to mute so that we'll be able to move on very well. So let me see what people are saying at the chat. All right. So I see people that education calendar has been suspended, and I'm also asking, like, that person is asking, "Oh, scare what?" I think that we are still moving on well. The exams, the national exam, are still moving on, and so nothing that has really changed. You have to be ready to do your exam. The candidates have been doing already their exams, and so it is very important that you be in a position to do the exam. So I wanted to bring you up to speed from where we left in our previous lesson, and already I know we had started about Elijah. Easy.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. So just in a minute, I take you there, and then we'll be able to really proceed as we continue covering the syllabus well at home, so that when we come, we'll not have a lot of problems. Of course, those notes, you can continue using them alongside your KLB book as you make your personal notes. And that becomes very important for you as a student. And basically, you'll be looking at how you are able to cover the syllabus will assist you, or now you'll be able to do the same before the exam comes for the national exam. And so it's very important for all of us that we stay tuned, we stay awake. I know some of us, you are shocked by the positions that you are at the end of the term exam.
We don't even know.
We don't have.
We don't have
You
our
don't
results.
have?
Yes.
But I gave you your CRE papers long time ago.
Yes, you gave us our CRE,
Oh.
but there's no other.
And I even forgot that I was marking anything to do with Form 1s, you know. It seems that I've already gone to a topic that is far much ahead. Yeah. So you are saying that you have not been given any other subject?
Apana, we have not been given.
Only theory.
Only CRE.
Yes.
And German.
Okay.
Hey, German, sir.
So that means that mnapaswa kuniona kando, because inaonekana mimi niko sawa, niliwasort very fast. Alright. Sijui kama sasa atanifikisha kags wanibonde ama itakuwaje. Anyway, let's go to our lesson today. I remember that we had introduced about Elijah, isn't it?
Yes.
I guess that already people are saying no, and I'm wondering, were they not in class, or exactly what could be the issue? I thought that already they were there, you know. So I wanted us that we have a look at it, just as we have been saying. And now when you look at the topic that here we'll be looking at here, already I began by giving you a bit of the expectations in the entire topic. And those are the things that we already talked about. Of course, we talked about Elijah, who is talking about much about loyalty to God, meaning that is trying to bring people back to the covenant way of life. And we see the issue of idolatry, or the worshiping of false gods, is not really an issue that we have not had in the life of Israelites. We already talked about idolatry when we talked about the time that they were coming from Egypt, when they were led by Moses, and most of them, they find themselves worshiping an idol, an image. Remember, they carved that image and they made Aaron to make for them. And that is what led to the breaking of the Sinaitic covenant. And then, of course, we see that it is usually, most of the time, the Israelites were already forbidden worshiping other gods. They were also forgiven about intermarrying, compromising the worship. And I remember that we looked at, because we already looked for the conditions for the renewal of the covenant. And those are some of the conditions that they were there. We also looked at the 10 Commandments, and already we know the demands that were there from the Creator, who is none other but God Himself. But when they came to Canaan, we find that, however, when they settled in Canaan, the Canaanite influence influenced them on a great, and they started to fall away from the worship of Yahweh. These were the covenant people who are supposed to be really patriotic, people who are supposed to be loyal to God, people that God has said that they were chosen people, that He has called them His own people, that He has been together with them. And so we find them worshiping idols, and that can be, there are very reasons that made that, because of the local Canaanite religion that was there. And you see, the local Canaanite religion was a very kind of a natural or cosmic, or we call it a cyclic religion, because it had many family of gods and goddesses. And I've given you examples there of El, Ashate, Anat, and among other gods. And so for them, they thought that, okay, the more gods you have, the more powerful you are. And so, like, instead of having a belief in one God, Yahweh, and that is what we call monotheism, they had a problem when they are talking about having, they wanted to have a lot of many gods. And that is what we call polytheism. They find themselves in at a time they attempted to start practicing polytheism. And you see the Canaanite religion, they had the chief god who was known as El. You know, El was the chief god there, that we find him most of the time there. Then, of course, the god also had a wife who was called Asharte or Balazath. And we shall be looking at these gods and their significance. And we find that now, because of that, there were mountain or hilltops, high places of worship and temple shrines that were already in the Canaanite religion, in the Canaanite areas. And so because there are those mountain high tops that are there, they are like now already starting to have a feeling that Yahweh is not true God, or Yahweh is not able to satisfy their needs, or Yahweh is not a God who is able to respond to the cry they have. And so we see that they used symbols to represent each God. We have got each god and goddesses. That is, we have got Baal, who was represented in the form of a bull, you know, and a stone pillar, you know, and this god of Ashata was also presented by a sacred pole. And so we find that time now they were also practicing something that is also known as temple prostitution. Now people are trying to ask, what is temple prostitution, you know? And this is where there were some kind of women that were already positioned, you know, in the temple, and we have got the priests that used to come, and they used to do half sex with them in the temple, so that God is going to hearken to their prayers, especially the God of fertility. They get to do that so that they may call him. They used to believe that in the very act that the spirit of that God is going to come. And so they practice that kind of a temple prostitution. Again, the local Canaanite religion had another characteristic that, of course, they offered elaborate human, animal, crop sacrifices to the gods. And I want to give you attention to the human sacrifice, because sometimes they used to feel that giving a sacrifice, that is the highest kind of commitment that you can give to a deity. And so they felt that if these people are going to be, the human sacrifice are going to be given, you'd find that, for example, a child is taken to that place and they slaughter the child and is offered as a sacrifice, you know. Or sometimes it's somebody that has come and they feel that they are slaves, they were offering there in honor of the gods. And we see that each god or goddesses, yes, I want to Caesar, Rabala, yes. If you have a question, you can ask.
Yes, I was asking,
Yeah.
we see that you've explained very well that there were human sacrifices.
Yes.
Now, in brief history of these human sacrifices, because we've known of the history of Egypt, they also used to sacrifice humans. So will we say they borrowed it from the Egyptians, or it just started within them? They never had any idea. Thank you.
Okay, maybe for that we can see that they may have borrowed that from Egypt, but when you look at the life of Israelites in Egypt, already they had been secluded. They had been set aside to a place, and the place that they had been already set aside to was the place that was called Goshen. So for them, they never used to interact much with the Egyptians, because the Egyptians just used to come there, force them, do some work, and then they go back. But now look, now when they go to Egypt, to Canaan, already the promised land, they have no option. They have to interact with the people. And so it is alluded that they carried this practice most of the time from the Canaanites that were there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, somebody else with that question? Somebody else? I had seen somebody else with lifting that. Brian Mwanzia?
Yes, in the shared screen, you have said that the Canaanite religion was cosmic. What do you mean by the term cosmic?
All right, let me go back there. And when I say about cosmic, I means about, I don't want to go there, but we have got what we call cosmology. And when we talk about cosmology, is that sometimes we see that the divine, or the issue of spirituality, it is alluded to some bit of physicality in it. And so anytime that you are talking about anything that it is divine, it must be connected to a physical kind of a thing. And no wonder that we are talking about it cosmic nature, because we find that there were a lot of physical representations of items that were made to allude to the physical, to the spiritual kind of alienation. So when you look at, for example, the calf, it is a physical sign, but it is cosmic because it is also trying to bring to the issue of divinity, because it is symbolizing something. So even when you look at the god of fertility was also represented by a pole, that is a sign, that a cosmic sign that is having a meaning to the divine. So that is what I'm trying to allude. So there was a lot of idol worship because of those kind of gods that were representing something.
Thank you.
All right, Manzia? All right. If no one has any other question, I can now proceed. Again, we find that the Israelites were having a transition from pastoral life, agricultural life, while in the wilderness. And the Israelites, when they were in the wilderness, when you remember they were in the wilderness and when they were living in Goshen, actually the reason that they were given the land of Goshen is because they used to keep a lot of livestock, and so they used to survive so much on livestock. But now they have come to Canaan, and the Canaanites were not much of livestock keepers, they were much of farmers. So the Canaan that they are meeting, the Israelites are much of the farmers. And so they really want also to copy that way of living. And so you find that now, if they want to have a good crop produce, they have to worship, they feel that they have to worship the God, that is of farming, so that they are able to get good produce. So that transition from nomadism to agricultural is something that is also going to deter them in terms of worship of Yahweh. But again, during the ancient times, there was a belief that our God was only powerful in his own land. And so they felt like if you are in Canaan, then the God who is powerful in that land is the God of Canaan. Just as we have the aspect of presidents. Presidents are powerful in their own countries. If you go like in America, you find that President Joe Biden is having much say. You come to Kenya, they say Unye has got much say, And it's because, so they also felt that that is the concept of the same with God. That God was only powerful in his own land. And now this God, they were with them in the wilderness. And they are wondering, even the way that they were with him in Egypt, is it the same way that he's going to have the same power, to have the same impact in this other arena? And that is basically in this new site. And the new site here that we are talking about is none other but in Canaanite. And so the Israelites also understood that Yahweh, they were also having a feeling that Yahweh was an historical God. And you know, many times that we talk about God of Abraham, God of Isaac, you know, God of Jacob, it is like God of ancestors, God of legends, people that have already are not already in existence. They stayed, they could not identify with Yahweh during that time. I'm trying to form a background of the reason why there is going to be a lot of idolatry in Israel and why Elijah has to come in place. And so some Israelites, they felt that Yahweh could not be effective in their new environment. And so they began to worship Yahweh and Baal, depending on the need at the time. So they started worshiping Yahweh alongside other gods. And that is what we call religious syncretism. You know, when you find somebody is worshiping Yahweh and is worshiping along other gods. And you see even that happens in our churches today. There are people that still go to church, but they have no issue to go and consult a medium. They have no problem to go to the witchcraft. You know, some people actually they go to the witchcraft if they are sick, and when they get healing, they come to the church to testify and say, "We thank God that I was unwell. But when I went and visited so and so, he gave me this and this, and my family has come back." You know,
Man, yeah.
it's really it's really an issue that we find in most of the Christian domains. That we find some people are worshiping Yahweh alongside other gods. Another issue that is going to come into place that Yahweh was an invisible God, and yet the Canaanites' gods were more physical. You can touch that calf, you can see that kind of an artifact that is trying to represent Yahweh and all that. And so when the Israelites were defeated in war, they thought, okay, we are being defeated because this God is not powerful in this land. And they thought that, no, this Yahweh is a useless God. How can he be defeated, you know? And they failed to realize that the defeat was a result of punishment for God, you know, disobeying and a failure to live according to the covenant way of life. So sometimes when they go and they are defeated in life, they think that it is Yahweh has been defeated. And whatever that I'm trying to think about is something, a post that I saw on Facebook, and somebody was trying to lament that a bishop had died, and then they were saying that is it that God was not there to protect one of his own? And the issue of suffering and the issue of suffering in mankind really tries to bring a lot of question on the existence of God. And you find some people asking, where was God when all these people were being killed? Where's God even during this time of COVID? That all of our people are dying, you know, people are living in miserable states, people are not able to really live their lives normally. Where is God? And that's a question that we really find people sometimes asking in times of calamities and difficulties. And you see, you realize that God is a God of all seasons. God is a God of all times. And many people, they tend to forget that God is not only God of good times. Even Jesus himself on the world, he never had good times. No wonder he says that on the world you are passing by, you'll be rejected, you know, you'll be persecuted. And we really find these statements, sometimes people, they don't like talking about them. We have what we call selective Bible reading, where people select some particular verses that seem to be suitable according to their needs. So the Israelites failure to effect the God's command again to destroy the cultic objects, because they were supposed to destroy all the objects of worship for the foreign gods if they went there, is going to be another issue. And so from there we see that when they went to Canaan, and that is what is going to make them leave them to worship of idol. And so quickly I want to look at religious Sikhism between Judah and Israel. And this is not a new topic, because already we looked at the leadership under God's plan. And we looked at this man who was called Solomon as the last king who was going to reign over Israel when it is a whole. And what happens thereafter, we see there's the division of the kingdom. You know, we have Judah on this side, we have Israel on the other side. And this is gonna be happening at a time when this man who is called Jeroboam is going to have a dispute with Rehoboam. And we see, so Jeroboam at this particular time was not a king at one is not a king, but we have Rehoboam who has been selected by the Solomon to be the inheritor of the kingdom. And Rehoboam, being a young man, is really having an issue of how do I really guide these people? And he goes and asks the elders of Israel, kindly advise me, what can I do really to earn the favor of God? And they told him that, you know, Your father was so harsh. Your father was not treating us well. Your father was also giving us, asking a lot of tasks from us. Lessen that, and then we shall be your loyal subjects. But after that, he asked the elders, and they tell him, okay, do as the people have said. But after that is that he really goes and consults the young people. And as young people, most of the time we are not sincere. We don't give the true advice to one another. They told him, these people, can you tell them that you are much bad than your father, so that they may fear you? Tell them that your one finger, your small finger, is more tough than the waist of your father. Your father, tell them that your father, my father was beating you with just these slashes, but I'm going to use scorpions to punish you. And the people who are like, yeah, okay, so you are going to make us you are going to make us suffer again. They said, to hell with the house of Jesse. We don't always require a king from there. And they chose Jeroboam to be their king. So the 10 tribes, they were able to move from there. And then we have the 2 tribes, and the 2 tribes here that are going to be led by Rehoboam are going to be the tribe of Benjamin and Judah, because those are the tribes that were not paying taxes. They were not even being forced to do anything. They were not doing forced labor. I don't know if community work is forced labor in Alliance, but from once and the house cleaning. And the house cleaning in Alliance, I know it's something that you can find the students really having an issue with. And so I was trying to pick up the point here. And so when you see the so from there, we have now one kingdom has been divided. We have the southern kingdom, which is led by Rehoboam, and we have the northern kingdom, and the northern kingdom has been led by none other here, but Jeroboam won, and he's going to have 10 tribes on his side. And so now the issue is that in the southern kingdom, that is where we have got Jerusalem and the temple, the place where people are being taught the Mosaic law. We already look at the importance of the temple, and that is the southern kingdom. But on the northern kingdom, you realize that they don't have that temple. But what is happening? Jeroboam is afraid when the people of Israel, they go back to the southern kingdom to worship in the temple, they are going to pay loyalty to Rehoboam. And so he decided to erect different worship places for them, one at Dan, another one at Bethel, so that they may not go to the southern kingdom. Why is it that he doesn't want them to get interfered there? And this was made possible through, so that is when we get now religious Sikhism, because we find Israel worshiping differently and Judah worshiping differently. And that is something that we find because of just Rehoboam listening to the advice of young men. And I was saying that young men, sometimes they don't advise each other very well. I don't know if you have ever asked a friend to give you an advice of an issue and you get a very wayward kind of response. Ati unasema nini? Huyo dem anataka usiachilie manze. Umeangukia. Tumia fursa bana. Rasilimali za muda. Unasikia cheza kama wewe bana. So we need also to be advising people well. I'm trying to remind myself that sometimes, even when you see people, it is reminding me when I was a young boy, and basically when I was in primary, I was in a day school for some time before I went to a boarding. And one of the most interesting part was the time that we were closing the school, Unasema manzi nitafunga na wewe nitafunga na wewe.
Salim.
And then you have got the chair. You have the cheering squad. And the cheering squad was made of young people. Wanakuambia chora mstari hapo ama tema mate wacha avuke. Maze mimi siwezi ambiwa hivyo. Siwezi ambiwa hivyo. Avuke hapo uone. And you end up fighting until you are bleeding all the way up. And your parents, when they realize that you are fighting, they also give you more beating. And that time, the people that were really psyching you up, the cheering squad is not there. You are suffering on your own. That is what happens in high school setup. Huyo karau manze, mimi hazi nipatia pano. Wala siwezi fanya, nitasikia
Yani book
Peter
tuone
Stevie.
kaa ataenda Harvard.
Joshua.
And you know, boys, when you are caught, you find yourself you are caught alone, and you are really finding it very difficult to convince others why is it that you never did whatever work that you're supposed to do. Anyway,
Shadocom.
Jamie.
I don't want to talk much. So I was talking about the actions that Jeroboam took. I talked about him when the two golden calves and he's placing them with Bethel, another one at Dan, to act as a visible representation of Yahweh. And so he's going to ignore Jerusalem as the worship center. And that is what is going to bring a lot of the worship of Yahweh to go down. Of course, he built other places for the worship in other mountain tops, and that is just copying the practices of the surrounding nations that were around there. And this man called Jeroboam, he also chose the priests from ordinary families. And remember that the Bible talks about the priests who are supposed to come from the house of Levi, and those who are supposed to serve as priests according to the God's command. And this man called Jeroboam, to make matters worse, he also instituted the religious festivals or feasts that were against whatever that was there before. And they're like, no, he's having very different kind of religious festivals. And that is something that we find. And so his activities are really going to make the spread of idolatry in Israel. And so from there now, it comes to this reign of this man who was called King Ahab. And King Ahab is going to marry a Phoenician kind of a princess, As many people, they say, when they look women from far, the other cultures, according to them, sometimes they appear to be so beautiful. And so that is the reason that King Ahab is going to marry, is going to marry this for a nation. And of course, King Ahab's marriage to Jezebel was another factor that led to the spread of idolatry in Israel. Because Jezebel was a forger, he's having to run away for his life and saying, that we get from there. And so King Omri, who was Ahab's father, he had already made a treaty with an alliance with the Phoenician king there. And so the king gave Ahab the wife, the princess, was the daughter of Ethabal, the king of Tyre. And so what Jezebel, now being the wife of the king, is going to do, Jezebel brings all of it there, and tries to make the people to worship there. She asked her husband to build high places for them there, and is asking his husband to really, why don't you allow that, you build high places so that I may be able to worship these idols. And what I'm trying to talk about here is that, of course, Ahab had no strength to resist anything from Jezebel. As I was telling you, we men sometimes we are like a loaf. And when we are placed near tea, hata kama ni green tu ama kahawa, we don't have strength. That is trying to represent how men sometimes are powerless when it comes to the issues of ladies. You can ask Samson. Samson is one of the people that when you talk about his, although he was mighty, carrying gates, killing, but when Delilah came, alikuwa tu ni kama maji ama alikuwa ni sawa tu na biskuiti ambayo imeanguka pale kwenye maji. You can also ask a man in the Bible called David. A man after God's own earth. You find him there, but when he was able to see Bathsheba, things changed. And he realizes when he is too far. And that is telling us that as young men, we need to guard ourselves. When the Bible talks about guard yourself, because temptations are all over the world. And any kind of decision that you make, it has got repercussions. You can look at Samson, how his eyes was gouged out, and how he finally dies miserably together with other Philistines in the building. You can look at David, the son had to die among any other practices, even the sin of idolatry, how it rested upon the family of David because of that. So there is that bit of you have to be thinking about as you do some kind of action. So that is an advice that usiwe kama mkate ambao ukianguka kwenye chai unakuwa kwamba una msimamo. Lazima unakuwa msimamo kama Joseph, unakimbia kukimbia. Lakini I don't know how many Josephs I have in this class. The way that people are silent on this matter.
Wongo.
That people are silent on this group of 36 of us today,
Joel.
you know.
Kingston.
Or most of us, other people are mentioning others, they don't have confidence in themselves. Anyway, that's important. And so we see that she asked, so we have talked about how Jezebel asked the husband to build high places for the idols. And so she also influenced the king to make Baalism a state religion. You know, it becomes a state religion that everybody was around Israel at that time needed to worship the idol that was there, you know, because that was the state religion, Baalism. Again, she also persecuted the prophets of Yahweh very much. You know, they are really being persecuted, including Elijah. The prophets of Yahweh were really persecuted during this time. Friends, it's also important to note that apart from that, he also brought the Baal kind of prophets. Just a minute, I'm wondering why my screen is not moving. Okay, fine. So when we talk about that, we see that apart from that, he also brought about the other worshippers, the Baal prophets, and we shall find them being killed by Prophet Elijah, the contest at Mount Carmel. That is something else that we get it along. And so those are the factors that contributed to the worship of idolatry in Israel. And so God had to send a man to return these people to the covenant way of life, because they had neglected the covenant way of life. They had forgotten the rock where they had been cut from. They had forgotten that they were the God's covenant people. And so you may be saying that this was in the time of Israel, but again, we have got forms of idolatry in our modern society today. And what are some of them? What are forms of idolatry that we have in our modern society today? We can ask you that in an exam. List 7 examples of forms of idolatry that is found in our society today. Yes, Elvis?
Wealth.
Wealth, you know, that's true. Number 1 is wealth. Many people are worshiping their idols. Yes, Godwin?
Education.
Others is education. You know, when they study, they feel there's no need for God. It is everything that matters in their life. There's no place for God. Yes, another person? Elvis again? Or
Social
George?
media.
There are those cultism. George, what do you say in Kingston?
Social media.
Others is social media. Oh my goodness. I agree with you. Many times you find people are spending quite amount of time in WhatsApp, Facebook, you know, trying to upload their photos of how beautiful or handsome and how good they are. You can think about others just in a Sorry for that. It was really an avoidable call. And so I was looking at somebody is asking how many factors contributed to idolatry. There are so many. Of course, I've given you a lot. You can be able to see even in the other notes that I already sent. And so I was trying to show witchcraft is some of the, somebody is asking witchcraft. I agree, witchcraft is a form of idolatry today, because there are people that believe you can never succeed when you don't, you have not gone to so and so, you have not seen, you have not done and that, and you find most of them their life is devoted about that. Let me give you more examples of idolatry in a modern society. So number one is materialism, love for earthly possessions, and you find that many people today are working for materialism. That explains why some people are saying that it is better to live a very short life and you have money and you really enjoy life, drive the kind of car that you want, than to live a very long life and then you die in poverty. And that is why most of young men are finding themselves in mummies and sugar daddies. There may be people that are listening to me and they are thinking about getting a sugar daddy, a sugar mommy. I don't know. Which is very wrong. So that is one of it. Another thing that has also contributed, we can also talk about, is the kind of role models that we look at. And we find that sometimes there are role models that people copy. They are not really people that are promising in terms of their behavior. It is something that we have seen among the young people copying the celebrities in particular. We have got permissiveness in the society. That is something else that we find that has led to idolatry. It's something that has led to idolatry today. And when I'm talking about permissiveness in the society, I'm basically talking the belief that, everything is okay. There's a lot of moral decadence. And I was giving an example to another class here of the time that we find that I was trying to watch the inauguration of the President Joe Biden at one time. And what struck my attention was the time that he was introducing the cabinet secretaries. And so one of the minister was called Peter. And Peter is standing up and saying, "Hi everyone, it's really a great opportunity to be here and being given an opportunity to serve in the finance docket. And I came along here with my lovely wife, Pira. Pira, can you stand up and say hi?" And Pira is standing up just to salute the people, wearing a skirt, having a weave, but basically he's a man. And for them, it is okay. I don't know if you can hear that in Africa, but it is called permissiveness in the society, and things are just there. Another reason that has contributed to the worship of idol or the idolatry is unanswered prayers. And when I talk about unanswered prayers, I'm basically talking about frustrations in life. People sometimes life can be very frustrating. Somebody has been looking for a job, they're not getting job, and so they're like, we can do anything to get money, So that frustration has led to the worship of idols in the modern society. Another is that influence from non-believers, ridicule. And we find that one happening most to the young people, especially in schools. Hey, wewe ni molijo. Unaendaga CU, tumsema wa ICS. Manzi uko devoted hivyo kwa SDA. Zizi manze. Hiyo wacha hizo vitu manze. Kuja to enjoy life, tujirice, tujibambe. And people that worship Yahweh and people that are really trying to devote themselves to God, you find themselves ridiculed. And some of them, they fall away from their faith. We talk about lack of faith is something that has contributed to the worship of idolatry. I wanted also to talk about the influence from mass media, the social media, and where we find people having basically a major belief that it doesn't really matter. Life is not that serious, The social media has got a way of trying to collab to really give the mind a solution, And I was asking the way that people nowadays they're using Facebook. Anytime you are having anything, they go to Facebook to write and try to get answers to their problems. And then I was reading a post in the morning, and one person was written that I am unwell. I'm feeling so bad. This is a bad day. I am unwell. I don't like this day. And I loved one of the responses that somebody gave him and said, "We are not doctors. Go to hospital." You know, if you are sick and you are writing in Facebook, you are unwell. You know, you are not you are not getting a solution. And so social media has become a problem. Another one, we have got the urbanism that we have today, the urbanization, where you find people who have really moved to the urban areas, and there are many challenges that come with urban areas because you find people behaving in bad ways, and that becomes a problem. Another one, we have got threats to human life, you know, poverty, when people are having extreme poverty, wars, and all that, it becomes a challenge to them, and most of them they resort to idol worship because they feel threatened. Then we have got religious pluralism. Wow, the cults. Yeah. No, religious pluralism is something that has really contributed to worship of idols. Friends, you wouldn't believe this. I was walking in town and I got 3 churches. And one of it that I already told you about was this church that was called DCM, that is called Demon Chasers Ministry. You know, that is a religion, Demon Chasers Ministry, DCM. But I also got another one, BCM. Now, BCM means Breast Circus Ministry. Breast Circus Ministry. And the man of God claims to have power. It is usually attended by women, you know, who should not be always on our brow, because the man of God has got the spirit of sucking at the curse, you know. And that's a church. And people attending in this Nairobi, not very far, in this Nairobi. Oh my goodness. Mm-hmm. And then I found another one that is called, that one came more latest, and that is called the COVID-19 Treatment Center Church. COVID-19 Treatment Center Church. And they are saying they have got a vaccine, and they have written vaccine, they have written Jesus Christ. And you know, the issue of religious pluralism has really resorted to some cults, because sometimes people, they find themselves worshiping things that they are not aware of. And that has led to a lot of idolatry, because a lot of religions that have come to there. Then, of course, political instability. We have got science and technology, where we feel we have got answers to all our problems. So we don't require to worship Yahweh alone. We can worship other idols. We have science and technology. And that is all of us what we thought until COVID-19 came. And when COVID-19 came, people realized that life is not like that. Life is a bit more complex than what they think about. And then you have got also discrimination based on race, tribe, others has also led to that. And of course, the peer pressure. So I've given you many points here, and that was showing you that these are questions that we really ask from that causes of idolatry. If we don't ask you to identify sources of our causes of idolatry in Jewish, in Israel, then we'll ask you here about the causes of it. And basically here it will be the causes of it in terms of in our contemporary society. I'm sure that you'll be able to get it there. And so what was the impact then of the worship of idol worship in Israel? And number one is that it led to the persecution of Yahweh's prophets. You know, Yahweh's prophets were like, oh, they were really, really, really harassed. And we find even Elijah at one point trying to run away. We find 750 of them hidden on a cave at a particular point because Jezebel was after them. So that was number one. Number two, another one, maybe Elvis, you can read for us. Another impact, which was it? Matildo, you can read for us the second point, another impact.
The Israelites practiced syncretism.
The Israelites practiced syncretism, and that is talking about they started to worship Yahweh alongside other gods. Okay, Edwin, the third point.
God raised prophets to bring back Israel to the covenant way of life.
That it made God now another impact, because there's a lot of idolatry. God is going to raise up prophets to come back to the way of life. And this is basically like in the covenant way of life, like Elijah among others. All right, Hilary, another point here, you can read. Roy Hilary, or that is just a name that does not exist. Okay, George Kingston.
Bad prophets, prophetess were brought to Israel.
Actually, the word bad there was an oversight. I wanted to write bad prophets, Bad prophets and prophetesses were also brought in Israel, and that was not really something that was good. Okay, Brian Mwanzia, another impact?
People rejected the covenant way of life, stopped corruption and social injustices.
So people started now to reject the covenant way of life. They felt that they can worship Yahweh, they are no longer concerned, they never need to be patriotic and all that. Well, that was another impact, Then of course it led to have the drought that was there for 3.5 years, as Elijah prophesied because of the worship of idols. So it led to the people suffering because of 3.5 years drought that was there. Jama? Yes? What else can you be able to see? Another point? Okay, Godwin. Godwin's?
The Canaanites agricultural calendar was adopted by the Israelites for the.
Okay, I know you have started from the bottom that the Canaanites agricultural calendar was copied by the Israelites to their calendar. In other words, what is meaning that they began to worship Yahweh, and now they started to get the calendar that they were not supposed to follow, and they were supposed to follow the calendar that belonged to God. Okay, another point, Alan. You are just reading whatever that is on the screen. I wonder why people are not responding, or perhaps they are not there because this is a challenge with the online school.
Elijah fled the country and was fed by ravens through God's power.
Yeah, we have got there. Okay. Okay, so Roy Hillary, you are saying, okay, there's no problem. But those who are saying that the microphone has got a problem. And so we talked about Israel. Because of that, we see that Israel lost its covenant as a people. They lost the covenant way of life, and that became that was an issue there. Then another point that we can see that we see that the contest was also held to prove that who was a true God. And so we see that. Then, of course, God also punished the Baal worshippers because of worshiping the idols there. Then, of course, the Canaanites agricultural calendar was also adopted. And those are the impact that we are able to find there because of the worship of idols. All right. Let's maybe try now to look. So these are questions that we can ask you in an exam. We can ask you to of course, we looked look at the problems. These are just a question that you can find which is not there, you to look at the problems that is practicing kind of things, and yet for them they were not really much oriented to that challenge. For them again, of course there are people that shall be threatening them, and those are some of the challenges that we see they had as they were continuing with their settlement in Israel. And so I want to share fresh just 1 minute again as we almost come to a close. As I told you earlier that this is a lesson that you talk much CRE. Now and I have to keep moistening my throat. And so those are some of the challenges that we have been able to see. And I'm sure up to there, of course, there was also the influence of the there was stress. They were certainly also having the problem of religious syncretism, and so that is something that we are able to also find as we continue with that area. So you'll be able to look at that. I want you to give you a few assignments here. I want you now to start looking at
Charles tunafanya.
I want you to look now at Elijah, the prophet of the Elijah. And I want you to ask a bit of Elijah's fight against the false religion. And I want you to look at the contest at Mount Carmel. So your assignment, I want you to look at the contest of Mount Carmel. I can easily ask you that question to describe. Actually, the question should be describe the contest of Mount Carmel. Describe the contest at Mount Carmel. Describe the contest at Mount Carmel. Describe Carmel. Describe the contest at Mount Carmel. That is going to be your assignment for those who are having any question. You are now free to ask me any question. It is now question time. I want to get those questions coming. Any question from the side of students?
Mwalimu, I was curious.
Yes.
We are told
Yes.
that the Israelites were not oriented in the way of agriculture.
Yes.
But so what were they doing in Egypt? Were they just building and were not farming or any way of looking, just livestock?
They were just grazing there. They were just most of them they were doing what we call the livestock that were there.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Any person? Yes, Jakai.
Is it true to say that an effect of idolatry in Israel is that the parents began naming their children after birth?
Yes. Another impact is that they started.
The parents started naming their children after Baal.
Yeah, that was another impact. We find people that already they started worshiping Yahweh alongside other gods, and they started that naming. I agree with that. Okay. Which other one? Another question. So that was another impact that we find them. They started naming things after basically the idols that were there. And they even started calling their children the name that was there. Another question. Another question. All right. So if you don't have any other question, then I kindly request you that you help me by describing the context of Mount Carmel. We shall be looking at that context in our next lesson, the context at Mount Carmel, and then how Elijah was able to really fight the worship of the corruption that was there. So that is something else that we shall be looking at. So if you don't have any other question, I beg that I stop at there. I also add another meeting thereafter. And I ask you that you keep reading, please, please. And I ask you again, please, let us keep reading. Let us keep reading. Let us not wait until the national exam comes and we are really worried. We don't know what is happening. Let us really read. Let us use this holiday effectively so that when we come, we find ourselves that we are somewhere up. We are somewhere better than where we are before. Are we together?
Yes.
Yes.
So I want to end it at that point. I wish you a blessed weekend. Keep safe. Go to church. Let God has a place in your life, because it is very important. Yes. You can go to church online. People are going to church online, or you are just in at home. And when you have that phone, you are not thinking about anything else. Perhaps you are thinking about only that. Okay. So even if you are attending the church online, please attend and be part and parcel of the God's beautiful story that is written in the lives of the people. All right. I leave now. I wish you the best. I see.
French one. Side.
Hello, mute.
Ice mute.
Hatujifeel kukusikiza Ulu. We Ulu.
Yes, man. Ati wase wengine wanatoroka drift. Wase nimeleft.
Guys, nice weekend. Left.
Chucky base, bro.
Chakini group yosho. Everybody out.
Oh yeah.
Chilo goats. Chilo goat.
Rada. Huyu Hedge ni nani? Mwale. Mwale.